What's up, pitchers? I'm Coach Dan Blewett. In today's video, let's talk about WHIP, the pitching statistic, and why it's important and some ways that you can reduce it as a player. All right, so if you're new here, I'm Coach Dan Blewett. In the description below, you'll find my 2 baseball books, my online courses, other videos that will help you on your baseball journey. So if you're new here, definitely consider subscribing and stick around because I've got new videos coming out each week. All right, so let's start with the definition of WHIP. So WHIP is walks plus hits divided by innings pitched. So if you pitched 6 innings and you walked 4 and gave up 2 hits, which is kind of backwards, your WHIP would be 6 base runners allowed from walks and hits divided by 6 innings, which would be a WHIP of 1. If you pitched 3 innings and you gave up 4 walks and 2 hits, that would be 6 base runners allowed by walks and hits divided by 3 innings. Your WHIP would be 2. So it's simple math. It's a simple statistic, but it's really one of the great predictors of success. So when you look through Major League Baseball stats, the best pitchers, like the top 10 in ERA and strikeouts, all that stuff, typically, they all usually have WHIPs of around 1 or a little bit below. So first, let's say what is a good WHIP? So a good WHIP, I would say, is anything like 1.2 and below. If you're like 1.25, 1.3, like you're doing okay. But 1.2 and below is good, and 1 or below is exceptional. It's really, really good. So you don't necessarily want to hold yourself to a 1 WHIP standard. That's pretty tough. Again, that's only allowing 1 base runner per inning, excluding hit by pitches, and excluding errors and stuff like that, which again are much less of a factor at higher levels of baseball where you don't hit as many guys and your fielders don't make that many errors. But, the big thing with WHIP, and this is why it's such an important stat, and this is one of the few stats that I really did care about as a youth coach, is that it's a very good predictor of how many runs you're going to end up allowing. Because as a pitcher, you can control sort of weak contact. You can sort of control swings and misses by having nasty stuff, right? If you throw really hard, you have good command, and you have a really good breaking ball, you're going to be able to get weak contact and get swings and misses quite a lot, and it's going to reduce the amount of runs that are going to come home. But if you always have multiple base runners on per inning, and this is what you learn after you pitch for a long time, when you look around, there's always first and second. It becomes really hard to keep those guys from scoring because there's a certain amount of luck that always goes into baseball, which is when they put the ball in play, you don't have any control over where that ball goes. You also don't have control over the order of operations, so to speak, of hits. So let me give you an example of that. If I have an inning and I go single, single, home run, how many runs have I given up? 3. If I go home run, single, single, and then I get the rest of the outs of the inning, how many runs have I given up? 1. So only with changing the order of operations there, the order of the hits, I could give up 1 run or 3 runs despite giving up the same outcomes for that inning, which is 2 singles and, what am I doing with my hands? 2 singles and 1 home run, right? You could say, oh, well, you got to be tougher and you got to pitch well, when there's runners on base and really buckle down. That's not really a thing what they found in the major leagues when they have all this data. They found that pitchers can't really control and pitch that much better when there are runners on base. Basically, just like the way you pitch is the way you pitch, it all sort of evens out in the end. So again, this is why having fewer base runners on the bases is just going to make it easier for you to give up fewer runs. So that said, how do we give up, or how do we reduce our WHIP? If this is a practical video where I can actually help you with this, the number one thing is to reduce walks. That's the easiest thing. And so the way you reduce walks is by pitching in the white of the plate more often early in the count. So if you've seen my other videos, I'll link to that below. You need to sort of adhere to this sort of theory about like middle, half, third, and corners. This is what pretty much all pro pitchers do. They slice the plate up in 4 different ways. They'll throw it down the middle when they need a lot of margin for error. When they need to catch up with a strike, they'll aim down the middle so they can miss all different directions and still get a strike. When they've got a strike, and this is typically what I say even counts is a good halves count, they'll go inner half or outer half. So if it's 1-1, 2-2, 3-2, they'll go inner half or outer half because now they're going to differentiate one side or the other, but not give themselves too little margin for error where they're constantly missing off the plate. When you're ahead, 0-1 or 1-2, thirds of the plate. So you eliminate the middle third and you pitch to either the outer or inner third. And then obviously if you're 0-2, you might bounce a curveball, elevate, throw one off the plate that breaks off the plate, something like that. So, but when you use the middle and the halves more often early, which I see a lot of youth teams do this very poorly, where they throw down the middle first pitch and they go right to the black of the plate because they're always thinking about corners, corners, corners. Pro pitchers don't do it that way. If you watch Major League games, you really watch where the catcher's set up, they're not on the corners as much as you think they are. And this is for good reason, because they know pitchers are going to miss a little bit each time. And if a pitcher is good at missing away from the middle, they don't have to set up on the corner. They can set up on the third of the half and let their pitcher miss to the corner a little bit more. So as a coach, you should be calling more pitches to the middle and the halves early in counts. This is going to give your kids more chance to have margin for error, where they can miss a little bit more because they're kids and still get strikes and reduce the amount of walks that they have. This is a very critical piece of strategy that's missed on most youth pitchers and their coaches. So that's the biggest piece that I have. The next big thing is you need to work on developing a strikeout pitch. And this is getting good feedback from a coach who can really help you develop a breaking ball, whether it's a curveball, slider, or a changeup. And I do think the changeup is the first one you should learn. But having that critical secondary pitch, I shouldn't have said breaking ball because really I just mean secondary pitch. You need to have something that you can reliably get swings and misses with when you're a pitcher. That's what they call an out pitch. I have a pitch that I can get an out with when I want to throw it. So like for Andrew Miller, the lefty from the Cleveland Indians, slider was just unhittable. That was his out pitch, right? His fastball too. But most pitchers, especially in the back end of a bullpen, have an out pitch, whether it's a 99 mile per hour fastball or just a dirty slider or splitter or curveball, whatever. And most starting pitchers in the big leagues have at least one good out pitch too, because they need that. When they're in a jam, they're going to bail themselves out by throwing that dirty curveball to get the swing and misses. They're going to throw their best swing and miss pitch. That's their out pitch. So working hard to develop an out pitch when you're young and not developing too many pitches, which is a common problem I see, where players are like, oh yeah, I throw a fastball, I throw a cutter, I throw a slider, I throw a changeup, I throw a curveball. It's like all 5 of those pitches suck. Just throw a fastball and one pitch you can focus on so that it doesn't suck. That's a really big key. If you have good command and you're smart with your strategy, like where you're pitching, again, to the way of the plate a little earlier, so you're not walking as many hitters, and you have a really nasty out pitch where you can now get a swing and miss and keep a guy off the base paths when you want to, now you're not going to have to rely on luck so much, because every time they put the ball in play, they have a chance of getting a hit, even if they don't hit it that hard. Bloopers fall in, 11 hoppers squeak through, right? So out pitch and pitching with smarter strategy to get ahead in the count more and to reduce your walks. Those are 2 really important pieces that can help every pitcher on your team, no matter their current level of ability, improve their whip and thus give up fewer runs and help your team win more baseball games. All right. So hopefully this video today on whip was helpful. I think it's a really important stat. If your ERA is really low, but your whip is kind of high, you're probably pitching to a lot of luck. If your whip is really low, but your ERA is kind of high, you probably got a lot of bad luck. So whip is a really good indicator of how you're actually doing. It's one of those good sort of secondary, higher level stats for young teams, for amateur teams, without getting into all these other things like FIP, which aren't really going to apply very well for the younger players. All right. Leave a comment below. Do you use whip as a good indicator as a coach? Do you use whip as an indicator of how you're doing as a pitcher? Let me know. We'll talk about it. All right. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.